This is the Super Rad BMX Podcast. Down the first straight is the cruising Cornhusker over the jump bonsai Brad. Now your host Brad Fanshaw and Tim Lilladora.
Everybody, welcome to Super Rad BMX Podcast. And you know what? I'm really excited about this one. It's almost like we've done it before. I know we've done quite a number of episodes, but it's almost like this particular one has been done before. And before we get to our guest and introduce, I want to welcome you to the party, pals. And let you know that I'm Brad Fanshaw, and with me is Tim Lilthorpe. Tim, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing great tonight. Had a good week.
Good.
Excited to be on air with you again.
Cool. But what if somebody's listening to it during breakfast? Is it still night?
Well, we recorded it at night.
Hey, I want to remind everyone that, this is the video podcast, and you can find us. Tell your friends, if they're searching, go to Radmatic. That's with 2 T's, Radmatic on YouTube. And worldwide, you can find us on most audio podcast channels like Apple, iHeart, Spotify, and more. I mean, you can even tell your Alexa device. You could say, Alexa, play Super Rad BMX Podcast. I wonder if that worked. I wonder if anybody's is playing it right now for them. I know mine is. Alexa, stop. And I want to also let you know, brag a little bit here, Tim. Our last episode was listened to, and I went and did the research, looked at the numbers, and we had listeners from the USA, of course, Australia, UK, France, Chile, China, Brazil, India, Canada, Belgium, Bulgaria, Russia, and Switzerland. I mean, that's pretty exciting that we're getting people from all over the world listening now. What's exciting is that we keep changing it up because our first shows have all been old school. But when we launched this, we told you that we were going to bring you old school. We were going to bring you new school, mid school, freestyle, and anything related to BMX, like new products and stuff like that. And we are holding true to that because, as we promised, Super Rad BMX brings you tonight. We're going to go new school with our guest, American Olympic Team rider, Payton Ridenour. And welcome to the show, Payton.
Thanks, guys. I'm stoked.
Yeah. Hey, before we get into the interview and start talking with you, Tim and I want to have a little bit of news to let everybody know that, Tim, what did we get? What came UPS the other day?
We got from Torker bikes that are basically reproductions of our childhood Torker frames that we raced. And we're so excited about that. Bill Ryan from Torker, great guy. Now he's in charge of the Torker brand. And we are going to soon do an unboxing of our Torker frames.
What color's yours, Tim? Do you know?
Mine
Have you opened it?
I might have peeked into the corner a little bit, but the outside of the box says candy red, and I'm stoked about that because I had a candy red, the first Torker they made. I had a candy red Torker,
and my Torker that I raced was candy blue, and somehow Bill just knew. He sent me a candy blue one, and what's rad is on the outside of the box it says one of the first 100 frames. And mine is serial number 002, which is pretty cool. And so as Tim said, we're going to be doing some unboxing and then full build-ups. And I am pretty sure you're going to see us racing them next year at some of the old school events and bringing them out, messing around with them and having some fun. But that's what Super Rad BMX Podcast is all about, because other than just interviews, we're trying to make this more like a magazine. We're going to have some bike tests. We're going to have some, new products introductions and new product mentions. And continuing along that same line, as we said, 7-time national champion, qualifier for the 2020 Tokyo Summer Games. 2021, she won her first. Now, you corrected me once before. It wasn't your first Super Cup, was it?
First World Cup podium.
There we go. See, somehow I knew that. I stopped myself. Isn't that amazing? That I caught that. And then a second in Bogotá, Colombia. And that's not even all. She couldn't. Podiums weren't enough.
Finish. Yes.
Podiums weren't enough. Went and wrote a book, which we're going to talk about tonight. Yeah. So, Payton, let's just jump right into this, because one of the things that I kind of am curious, because you're new school. You just came back from the Olympics. And what do you think? What are your thoughts on vintage BMX versus today? I'm talking about the tracks, because they are just so different.
I mean, I've never ridden a vintage track, obviously. I was born in 2002, guys, and I started racing BMX in like 2008. But the tracks are just so much different nowadays. Looking back at videos, I just feel like they're so much faster. The jumps are bigger, more technical. Obviously, the turns are just massive. The speeds are so much higher. Obviously, we made the transition from flat, small tracks to huge, steep supercross tracks, and that difference alone is huge.
Those the supercross starting gates, the giant starting hills, we would have loved those. I'm telling you, I would have loved those, because my favorite thing were the downhill tracks, and some of the tracks that we got to race that were downhill that Tim and I raced were just so awesome. But that's got to be a kick coming out of the gate and just shooting down that starting hill.
I'm not gonna lie, it's definitely gets the nerves up, and no matter where I go, there's always nerves when I'm riding a new supercross track, or even if I've ridden it before and I haven't been there a while, just because of the risk involved with it. It just invokes a little bit of nerves in you. But at the same time, when you accomplish something like that, and you get over the jump for the first time and get that out of the way, the serotonin boost that runs through your veins is unlike anything.
So maybe you haven't raced a dirt clod track, as we will affectionately call the old school tracks. But I heard that recently at the Hall of Fame get together in Tulsa that you did ride an old school Mongoose.
So I want to say it's the California Special repop, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, but this is actually where I met my man Tim right here on the podcast, and he said, "Yo, you should come on the pod." And I said, "All right, let's do it." And now we're here. That was Tim and I's little meet and greet. And that same weekend, I did the vintage race over at the Hardesty track at the headquarters in Tulsa. And man, I had so much fun. But holy crap, that bike was unlike anything I've ever ridden before. When people ask me the difference, I basically say, think about riding a super short freestyle bike and then comparing it to the limousine. And the limousine is my current race bike. The top two difference alone is, I think, between an inch to 2 inches, which is in the sport of BMX, just a big difference. Yeah.
Were you afraid you're going to loop it?
Had that bike that she rode in Tulsa is, we had 19 inches was a long top tube back in the 70s.
Yeah, that was huge.
And I think yours is like an 18 or 18 and a half. But when I saw you on that bike, I'm like, oh man, I don't know about this. And then I saw you in the track, and I've got the photos to prove it. Man, she was boosting the doubles and manualing through the rhythm sections, and she kind of had that thing dialed.
Yeah, I did think that I was going to loop out. That's what I was most concerned about. And I was feathering it in little by little, getting more comfortable on the bike. But the only thing that I really wanted to do was put my own pedals on but I couldn't. I had to ride those narrow, just daggers and just pray for my life out there that I wasn't going to slip a pedal because the axle size isn't the same size as the pedals that I have to put on there.
Well,
That's
Tim and
why
I
we
have shins to
Yeah.
prove we have slipped
Yeah.
quite a few pedals.
That's why we have scars. Like if you look at
Yeah.
our legs, those I've slipped the pedals constantly on those things. I mean, that's why now I run the biggest pedals I can find I can get, even on flats. But back then, yeah, it was I don't know why they made them so narrow. They were like basically based on road bike pedals, probably.
Yep. The other
But
thing, Peyton, was back then it was the shin getting hit with the spiked pedals, and the other was our bikes were so short that your knee would find the gooseneck once in a while, which was never a good feeling, you know. So
that's right. We all have scars in the middle of our knees too, you know,
exactly
from
that's what I
hitting
mean.
because we
Yeah.
just had a single stem goose and the bolt was stuck up about a half inch, and that's right where your knee would hit.
Yeah.
So
But I bet your dad could relate to some of that because your dad was a BMXer, wasn't he?
My dad was the one who got me into BMX. He used to race when he was younger, and then he mountain biked for a lot of his life. But then he took me to the BMX track when I was 5, and I've been riding ever since. And it's always been something I've done with my dad too. So that's been a cool bond and connection that we've built through bikes.
That's really cool because that's what's so great about BMX is that it's not only the family you get from racing, but it's when you can bring your family with you. That's even better, you know. And
Yeah.
now, where did you start racing?
I started racing at Trilogy Park BMX in Pottstown, Pennsylvania. So it's about 45 minutes northwest of Philly, and that's my hometown as well.
What was your first national then? What was the first national you ever raced?
It's funny you ask that because we just found this big bed that we brought from the move recently, and I had all my old trophies in there. My mom used to label them, and she would put a post-it note on the back and say Peyton, 7 girls, Virginia, and then would say the place that I got. And then she'd always write a little note on it. Sometimes it would say beat national number 2, or it'd say total destruction, killed them, or something like that. And the notes my mom wrote were so funny. But we found my first national win the other day, and I think if I remember correctly, it was Morristown, Tennessee.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I think it was 2009 that I won my first national when I was 7.
7 years old. That's cool. Do you keep your trophies?
I
Do you have all the
did,
trophies from
and
them?
then well, recently I always used to say, "Mom, Dad, we have to keep the trophies." And we would keep all of the ones that I had from when I was younger. But nowadays, I looked at them and I said, "You know what? I don't really need that." And I only kept a few now. I have some of the Grands trophies and then any of the cooler prizes if they give out a cool plaque,
Sure.
anything like that, I'll keep. But a lot of the trophies I just donated and gave away. But I used to be very protective of my trophies.
I remember the ones I won. I found them in a room at the house Tim and I used to rent together years ago. And Tim had crossed. I had like on the bottom won this at Brad, and Tim had crossed it out and put Tim. And I don't know what that was all about, but
Oh my gosh.
now you keep saying the move.
Get me in
Let
trouble.
everybody know that you're not in Pennsylvania anymore. You have moved to Tulsa, correct?
Correct.
And why?
I've been living in Tulsa for about 2 years now. And in Pennsylvania, I didn't really have a lot of training opportunities if I wanted to be pro in BMX. I had a local track there that was about 15 minutes, which was Trilogy Park, which I just mentioned before, but it was basically a blown up pump track. It would take me about 23 seconds to get around this track, and when I would go and race these bigger races, the lap times would be anywhere from 30 to 40 seconds. So just imagine doing a whole sprint and then having to add another 10 on top of that. And man, my endurance was down the drain, and I figured that out real quick when I moved here to this track, which is like the longest track on the circuit in the US. But I made the move just for the resources here. There's the USA BMX headquarters here in Tulsa now, as of a few years ago, and they have a top-notch facility with the Olympic level track. They have a gym here. They have a spot to do sprints. They have a new athletic training program that they're putting in here, and USA Cycling will bring in athletes, and we'll do camps here throughout the year. And it's a really good hub for me. And going back to the tracks and training wise on these bigger supercross tracks, that's a lot of the racing that we do nowadays. That's what Olympics are on. That's what World Cups are on. That's what a lot of the USA BMX Nationals are on. And my closest supercross track when I lived in Pennsylvania was a 9.5 hour drive south to Rock Hill, South Carolina. And my mom, dad, and I take off school on Friday. We drive all the way down to Rock Hill, hit up Friday night practice, stay overnight, ride Saturday morning, and then drive a whole 9.5 hours all the way back to Pennsylvania. So between the track and the weather, it just wasn't ideal for me if I wanted to try to be one of the best in BMX. And my mom, dad, and I all decided to make the move out, and we've all been here together in Tulsa for the past 2 years.
Tulsa's a nice town. I think there's a lot Tulsa has to offer, and I mean, I've seen the facility that she's talking about firsthand, and it's incredible. There's, a weight room. It's just amazing. It's like built for training BMX pros.
I haven't been there in a long time, and I only remember being there on Thanksgiving weekend and the week preceding up to it for the Grands for many, many years.
That's a big perk about living here, because my mom, dad, and I used to drive 21 hours all the way out to Grands, race the Grands, and then drive all the way back. Now the Expo Center is 10 minutes from my house. That's one of the best parts.
Payton, I used to, when I was racing way back when, or even when I was running, when I was at ABA and running the races, I had a roommate at my house. This wasn't Tim; it was somebody else. And
the one after me.
Yeah, after Tim. And my parents, for many, many years, they would go, "Do you remember that one Thanksgiving that this happened? Or what about the Thanksgiving that Uncle so-and-so was here?" And I'll go, "That was Steve, Mom. I was in Tulsa, or I was in Oklahoma City. I was always gone every Thanksgiving." So all the family stories about Thanksgiving, I was never part of. And but I was part of the race. Well, okay. So you've made your whole family has seriously dedicated to BMX, Olympic racing, and it began to pay off, before even what you're doing now, because you qualified and made the Olympics in Tokyo, correct? For the very first time? And that's what we fondly call the COVID Olympics, right? Now, the difference between, let's just talk about that first. So your very first Olympics are totally restricted because of COVID. And tell us a little bit about that and a little bit about your experience, the good and the bad.
Tokyo, you have to be 18 to qualify for BMX in the Olympics. And COVID was actually the best thing that could have happened to me race-wise, because it gave me a whole nother year to prepare for the Olympics. Because I feel without the COVID fiasco, I wouldn't have even had my sights set on the Olympics. But next thing you know, the girl that was in the third qualifying spot for Team USA decided that she wasn't going to compete in Tokyo, and there was an open slot. So then when the World Cup started up again, I was one of the girls gunning for that spot, and I made my first World Cup final, and I made another World Cup final, and I ended up getting my first World Cup podium to top off the World Cup series that we mentioned earlier in Bogotá, Colombia. And that gave me my Olympic spot to qualify for Tokyo. And I was stoked. I was the youngest one there, and I was really excited because my coach Arielle Arielle Martin-Verhaaren. We've been working together for quite a while now, and a lot of people, I feel like, don't know her story. But basically, she didn't, long story short, she didn't qualify in 2008 for the Beijing Olympics because it was the first time BMX was in the Olympics, and
Right.
no one really knew how the point system worked. And something happened where she literally just missed the cut and didn't make it. So then 2012 came around and she said, I know the ins and outs of how this is going to work. And she was the top girl to out to London. And the day before she was supposed to leave, she had a really bad crash in training. It literally almost killed her. She had to go to the hospital and someone had to sub in her spot. And when I went to Bogota in 2021, Arielle was there and she was my coach then. And we were working together, still are working together. But I crossed the finish line and we knew that I made the Olympic team and she was there to see it. And that full circle moment was just so cool to, even though she never made it to the Olympics, that she could help an athlete, one of her athletes, get there was
Yeah.
awesome for us. That was one of the coolest things
Wow.
that I felt. Yeah.
So you make it there, and what's it like being an athlete at the Olympics? And this was, I mean, as I've heard and I understand, it was very restrictive compared to many of the other Olympics. What was it like?
Anyone that I tried to ask the Olympics about that's been before couldn't really tell me how it was going to be because of all of these weird restrictions around it. When I got to Tokyo, they were right. Restricted, could not go anywhere. And I didn't have a past games experience to compare it to, so I didn't really know how much we would get to begin with and just kind of saw it as normal, but knowing that it wasn't normal, I guess. And we had masks on, COVID test every day, social distancing, all that COVID related stuff. And it was really weird because there weren't any spectators in the stands. And I feel like I didn't get a full on Olympic experience.
Your
And
parents couldn't
now,
even come, could they?
yeah, I couldn't even get my coach there. I
Not
was
even
I
your
was solo.
coach?
Yeah, that
Oh.
was it. Yeah, it was literally just me and the staff members and the rest of the athletes there. It was really locked down and it was really untypical. But this past summer, I went to the Paris Games as an alternate athlete, and man, I had the best time of my life there. And I went as an alternate, and obviously, I really wish that I would have been able to compete. That would have been just amped my experience up another 10 notches. But besides that, I did everything that I possibly could there. I went to the Team USA house. I went to the opening ceremonies. I did all of the things that you could do around the village. I met a lot of cool people and basically soaked in that games experience that I missed the time before then. And there's just nothing like it. I really can't describe the experience, but just to be around so much athletic excellence makes you feel so like it just really invokes so much good energy in you.
Now, in Tokyo, I'm going back to Tokyo because you said something and I'm imagining this in my head. You don't have your parents there. You don't have a crowd there. It's basically a race happening in an empty stadium. And wouldn't it feel kind of like a high stakes practice session?
It's really unlike any race I've been to before because sometimes I even feel like having the fans or just seeing some kind of familiar face takes a little bit of pressure off of you. But when you're behind the gate and no one's talking to each other, everyone's serious, you can't look out and feel any kind of energy from the crowd. It's literally just you and you. And I think that's something that was really tough for me to try to overcome like for the first time at the Olympics was being in that environment. And I've definitely have grown and learned from that, but that alone was really tough to just kind of be secluded in yourself the whole time.
And even leading up, like, prior to getting in your slot on the gate and like that, because Tim, you and I can relate. There was always a little bit of the jabbing and the back and forth. people that were your friends, people that were your rivals,
Yeah.
and you wouldn't have any of that energy, I would imagine. Did that because you had masks on, you had your helmets on, you couldn't talk or interact really, prior to the race, could you?
We wanted to, but everyone is so serious. I'm someone who likes to be a little bit more goofy, but especially behind the gate, everyone is locked in and does their own thing. And there's no way I'm going to tap the girl on the shoulder over here and be like, yo, what's going on? Because that is just not going to fly well. Yeah.
And she's going to go, hey, you're giving me COVID, man. What are you doing? I mean, it was like everybody was so paranoid,
It
Yeah.
had to
but
be so it had to be so surreal to be a part of that, but it just makes me smile and it makes me feel good to know that you were in Paris and you could feel the exact opposite. The energy,
both experiences.
the whole vibe. Because but I can't you guys were talking about that. I can't imagine a race without the vibe because that's part of
The
what
energy.
gets your
Yeah, you feed
adrenaline
off it.
going.
Okay, so you talk about your coach. What I want to know is, my coach was my mom and dad. And my coach was other riders that would say, hey, man, I saw you in that turn and, you really should do this or that. What does your coach do? How does your coach scrutinize? And has it, and I'm kind of assuming here, but has it got down to we're using some kind of electronic monitoring and things like this as well today, or that measures how much breath you take and things like that, or where are we at with this?
I started off just like you, Brad, where my dad was just coaching me and helping me around the track, and everyone giving me pointers. And some of the faster experts and pros would work with me sometimes. But I didn't meet Ariel until 2017 when I was on the US Junior Development Team. And she was brought in as the coach of the team. And then that team kind of faded away, and Ariel and I stuck together, as well as one of our other athletes. And I just really like working with her because she's taught me so much, not so much, I guess, like technically around the track, but more like mentally and just dealing with any kind of situation around the track, whether that's racecraft or preparation behind the gate or how to deal with wins versus losses. And for it's really important. And BMX is such a roller coaster sport. So to have not only like the support of my parents, but also the support of someone who has been through the roller coaster to give their advice is really helpful. But as far as the training aspect goes, she'll give me everything that I do for training. So it'll be gym, track work, sprints, and we have a few things that we use to monitor progress. So we'll have the timing systems out on the track, and we'll write down gate times, full lap times. I'll write down the gearing on my bike. Sometimes we'll switch up the gearing and do different sessions on different gears to train maybe leg speed or train some more power or just try out a different setup. And we'll monitor like sleep, how I'm feeling that day. There's just so much that goes into it, but a lot of it is on me and like what I input in. And she won't tell me, hey, you should input all your stuff. Basically, the more that I give her, the more she can help me. And I understand that. And I'm not looking for that text that says, hey, I can't help you if you don't tell me what's going on. If I want feedback, I ask for it. And I think it's important, whether it's a coach or a parent or a friend or just some random rider at the track, to not be afraid to ask for help. And BMX is really unique where it's not a sport where everyone kind of comes together and there's a coach that tells you what to do. It's basically you show up to the track and it's a free for all and you learn on your own. And there's so much knowledge out there and everybody has so much knowledge. And I think it's nice to learn what everybody else has to say because everyone does things so much differently, but everyone has success in their own way too.
And I think you hit on something
That's
there
good.
because I
That's really
think
good.
that's why Tim, myself, you probably all gravitated towards BMX as our sport because, like, I played a little baseball, I played a little football, but it just wasn't my thing, man. I wanted that individual, where it was on me, and it was me in the gate against the other guys, and is that kind of what you're talking about as far as that individualistic?
Definitely. I have my small circle around me, but at the end of the day, it's just me racing on the track. And if there's a mistake, it's on me. And I like knowing that because I can change that to make myself be better the next time instead of relying on something that I can't control. And that's why I love BMX because it's always different and it's so challenging, but it's a challenge for me to figure out and not for anybody else to figure out for me.
Now, as an Olympic athlete with a coach and all that, has anything really changed in dietary restrictions before a national, or is it exactly what Tim and I ate, which was we got to get a big
I
plate
know I'm already
of
going to say no.
pasta. It's just we're gonna carb load, man, the night
No.
before.
Oh yeah,
I thought you
we
guys were
thought
going to
we needed
say
this.
like sweets and stuff.
Oh no, we
No,
thought
we
carb loading was all
we
we
kind of
had to do.
avoid. We knew we should avoid sweets, but like, oh, we need like 6 bowls of spaghetti the night before a race, which is totally wrong. And Gatorade used to be in the glass bottles, Peyton. Okay. Imagine that. It was a big glass bottle of Gatorade, and that's what we thought we needed to drink all day long at the track. Oh, we need, do you want the green Gatorade or the orange Gatorade? And that
Well, in
stuff
the
was so
morning
packed
before we
with
had muscle power, Tim. Remember muscle power? We had that too.
no muscle power didn't come on until the 80s though.
Well,
So
gosh, when were you racing? How old are you? So it's,
so I'm
but
sure your diet is completely different than ours was. But
Well,
our
generally,
parents, don't get us
pretty
wrong,
healthy. Yeah.
we weren't neglected. I mean, our parents did feed us, but
Yeah, I already eat pretty healthy. But I mean, you guys aren't wrong. I love to have pasta before race nights. It's either a pasta or just a chicken and rice before race nights. But as long as you're not eating anything that you know is total crap,
so you
I,
mean SpaghettiOs
yeah.
wasn't the right pasta to be eating?
Yeah, maybe not SpaghettiOs, but you definitely have to watch what you put into your system. There's so many like supplements out there nowadays and different drinks and mixes and stuff. And I'm in this testing pool where it's an anti-doping testing pool. So I have to put in my whereabouts and where I am during what
wow.
hours of the day. So if I'm traveling somewhere, I need to put in where I'm going to be, where I'm staying, how long I'm going to be there, and it'll be a random testing pool. So sometimes they'll test me at events if I get randomly selected, but other times they'll just knock on my front door.
They'll come to
Really?
your house?
They come to your house
They will,
to see if
yes,
you've
they will
eaten
come to my
SpaghettiOs?
house, come to my
No,
house
that's not.
and make sure I'm not doping.
They're not
That's
looking for
yeah.
SpaghettiOs, Brad.
Oh, I would. To me, that's doping. I mean, that's you know what's funny? I ate those when I was a real young kid, and on a whim, I bought some at the store one day, and I couldn't even eat the stuff. I was like, what the heck? What was I eating?
That's all my mom ever fed us.
Well,
We had
your house, they had the one
no,
with the diced up wieners.
yeah,
With the hot dog.
SpaghettiOs with no, it's SpaghettiOs with Franks.
Yeah, with Frank's. That's what it was called. Yes.
No,
So,
if my mom watches this, that's not true. My mom was a wonderful cook.
My mom is the best cook too. My mom cooks awesome meals here.
that's great. That's great. Okay. So what would you say to a younger BMXer who's going, I want to make this a career. I want to become a pro. I want to become an Olympic athlete. What's the number one thing they should focus on?
The number one thing, man, there's so many things to focus on, I would
Go
say,
down the
but
list then. Go down the list.
one thing that I would say, I don't know if I'd rank it at number one, but I'm going to say in my top, in case I think of something better later on,
Okay.
would be to not be afraid to try new things. Whether that's if you're
SpaghettiOs.
stuck, yeah, SpaghettiOs,
Yeah.
if it's going to make you go faster, if you're stuck in a div, you say, well, this has worked for me before. I don't know why it's not working now. Don't be afraid to maybe change something or try something new or go to a new track or or jump a new jump that scares you, or ride in the wind, ride with a new buddy. And BMX is such sport. Everywhere I go, it's a new location, maybe a new track, new weather conditions, new riders. And if you don't practice that and you're not willing to make some kind of change in your everyday life, how can you expect to be better in the future when some situation comes up where you need to adapt and change something? I would say adaptability, being able to be adaptable is big, as well as work ethic. It sounds so cliche, work ethic and determination and just work hard. But for me, that's gotten me as far as I am today. If it's raining outside and I say, oh, you know what, let me just skip training for today, that's never an option for me. There will always be an alternative to get some kind of training in, no matter what. And we all have our off days, but I think it's important, if you get up and you say, oh man, I don't know if I'm really feeling it today, it's those days that count the most, where you get up and you do something and you make yourself do something that really shapes your mental toughness and your resiliency to keep getting better and keep improving and keep wanting to get better. Because when I look back and I do something that was hard and challenging, I say, man, I'm so glad that I did this, because it makes me feel so good about myself. But if I go and I say, you know what? No, I don't think I'm going to do that today. And then at the end of the day, I say, man, I really wish I would have done that today. Or I say, oh, I don't really feel like I accomplished or I got done a lot today because I avoided this thing. And just that sense of accomplishment after you do things is so fulfilling and gives you so much energy to want to try new things and want to do new things and want to better yourself.
So
Yeah,
it's
you are
drive.
so yeah, she is so inspirational. I mean, that I just love that because that sort of resonates with me, and I understand that concept, and I totally get it. I love it.
I mean, it's in everything you do. You've got to have that. I mean, I can relate to what you're saying. I know Tim goes out and rides all the time, and Tim rides road bikes and he rides BMX bikes and everything. And for me, it's like I've got about a mile behind my house this severe canyon area, and there's this great dirt trail that's a 5 mile circuit, and it's really steep, then really down, then really steep, and it's tough. And I know what you mean. There's days where I go, I really don't want to do it today. Do I want to do that? And then I go, all right, put my shoes on. I go for the run. And when I come home, it's weird. It's like you have a whole different energy. You're like, God, I'm glad I did that. I almost didn't. I almost wimped out and said, yeah, I'll stay home, have some SpaghettiOs and watch TV. But when you go do it, it's those endorphins that are released, and it's that whole attitude that you get that, hey,
Yeah.
I'm this much closer to the next thing. And that's what you're talking about, isn't it? Basically.
And anything in life, it doesn't just have to relate to BMX. It could be something career related or family related.
Yes.
Yeah, it's so versatile that feeling and those intentions just pass on to all aspects of life. And to know that you've done everything that you can to get up to a certain point, like when I go to the races and I have a loss, I feel a little bit down on myself. But then I look back and I say, well, I know I do the work. But then when I get the win, it's so rewarding to know that I did everything that I could and it all clicked and it all worked out. And the smile on my face could not be bigger because of that sense of accomplishment that we've been talking about.
You couldn't have that great feeling of accomplishment if you didn't have a few losses in there, because you've got to know the peaks are only represented by the valleys, and that's so much of what you're saying there. Now, BMX has allowed you to travel the world. You've gone to so many countries. I'd like you to tell us how much, some of the countries you've gone and traveled to because of BMX. And then I'd like you to tell me what's your favorite one that you visited. And it doesn't have to be because of the BMX track or just as a country.
Here, I went to New Zealand, Australia, France, Colombia. Yeah, that was it this year. But I've been all over a bunch of Europe. I've been to a few countries and oh, I went to Canada this year too. I forgot about that. Just doesn't seem too far away, but I was there. And then obviously Japan for the Olympics. I guess the only continent I haven't touched, well, Antarctica. I don't know if I'm ever going to go there, but Africa, I haven't been there yet. I would love to go to maybe South Africa or something one day. But my favorite place that I've been to so far would probably be Switzerland. And the scenery was my favorite part. The mountains were awesome. I would choose the mountains over the beach any day. And the mountains were just quite the sight to see. It was so awesome.
I love Switzerland. I mean, Tim knows that. I had a watch factory in Switzerland actually, and did a lot of business. And I'm not kidding. I really do. I own a watch manufacturing company, and I would go over there all the time. And every time I would go, I would try and go to somewhere else. And those mountains, there's just something about them. I mean, they're just like you see in movies, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're just crazy, and the lakes are just like crystal, and the people are all real friendly, and it's a very unique country. It's very nice. When you go to other countries and you meet other BMXers, what's the one commonality? Is there another commonality other than BMX? Some trait that you found that all your BMX compatriots have?
The thing to do when we all get together is go out to a coffee shop and get coffee. But I'm in that 1% group that just does not like coffee. But that doesn't mean I can't go. I just get hot chocolate. But that seems to be the BMXer thing is to get coffee everywhere that we go.
Cool. All right, there you go. And I'm sure there's some countries they've had better hot chocolate than others. So
Yes, I've become quite the hot chocolate taster.
do you ever
Or
get it in a little bitty cup and just tell them it's a cappuccino and it's just actually a hot chocolate?
No, I'm proud of my hot chocolate.
Good. What were you saying, Tim?
Well, okay, so that's how are they different than you? Are they different? I mean, is
Yeah, they
everyone
drink
pretty much
coffee. She drinks hot chocolate.
well, I
Um,
mean, in terms of like, culture or how they train for BMX or the tracks, how is it different?
People that I met from other countries seem to be more grounded, I guess, and not as like energetic and crazy as the Americans. That's what my friends have told me. They say, "Man, you guys are weird," but in a
Weird.
good way.
So they're more in a
Um,
box and you have rubber sides to your box. You can push the edges a little bit, right?
yes, I like that analogy. That's perfect.
Yeah.
And then track wise, the other tracks that I've been to overseas just seem to be a lot more technically challenging. And the US is really, they seem to be flatter and kind of more built for the beginner. And then when I go over to Europe, I say, whoa, this is like a pro
Really?
level track. Yeah.
Wow, I find that interesting. Don't you, Tim? That they
Yeah,
would be a
I've
higher
I've
level?
heard that. I've heard that. I mean, that's why like there was a certain time period in time when the Europeans came over here and they just were starting to, beat the Americans because the tracks were more challenging and they were, our tracks were sort of like cookie cutter and theirs were more like what you see in the Olympics.
Yeah.
Is that a good analogy?
Yeah, I like that comparison.
Everybody who's ever raced has somebody they look up to. Who are some of your BMX idols and some of the people that you race with now, maybe that you really, really respect?
Well, I turned pro when I was 19 because that was the age requirement at the time. I think now it's only 17, but they always seem to change it. But a lot of these girls that I race are over 30. So think about it. It's about a like 14-year gap on
Yeah,
some
that
of
is
these
incredible.
girls. And yeah, I say, well, I've been watching this girl since I was little, and now I'm lined up on the gig with her. And one person I've always looked up to is Mariana Pajón, the two-time Olympic gold medalist. And I just always admired not one because she's a champion, obviously, in BMX, and she's won every title that there is to win, but also because I've gotten the opportunity to train with her sometimes and interact with her, and she is the most genuine person that I've met, and she always has time for everybody who approaches her. All the fans, all of the athletes, all the competitors, and will always spread kindness no matter what. And that's
That
definitely
makes it even
something that
better.
I admire. Yeah.
Now, where's she from?
Colombia.
Colombia. Okay. Yeah, that makes it
Yeah,
better. There's nothing worse than meeting an idol and wah wah wah. You just turned off, so that's cool.
Yes.
well, and just Brad, like I think Peyton can correct me, if I'm not correct about this, but
Tim,
um,
we talked about this. Don't go into how I was your BMX idol, okay? Come on,
well, I
bud.
was
We
I,
talked
I
about
was
this.
I was your BMX coach, but that's another day.
Well, yeah,
But
yeah.
but no, with Mariana Pajón, okay, so was she in the first Olympics in 2008? I believe so.
No,
I well,
2012 was her first one.
2012 was okay, but she's been in the Olympics so many times that when I see her, I'm like, okay, she's a favorite for me because just her riding style, her determination, um, and even in this last Olympics, she won, didn't she win some of the rounds? And I mean, she was looking amazing, and she just always has seemed to me, and even watching her at ABA races or USA BMX races, she's just a really impressive rider and someone, I don't think I've heard a lot of interviews with her, but I just, she seems like a true professional level competitor.
Yeah, I agree.
How how long would you like your career to last? You stay competitive and everything goes great. What would be your dream?
I have BMX as long as I can remember. And honestly, I don't really know at this point what I would do outside of BMX. And yeah, I would say I won't really put a limit on it at all. The retirement age has definitely gone up from what it used to be. And now you'll see some of the guys and girls in their prime. George Daudet, who won the Olympics in Paris this summer, is 33 years old. So I would say I would just go as long as I can, as long as I'm still on the top of the BMX uh of the circuit, then there's no reason for me to just stop.
That's what I mean. And not just BMX, but in some other sports. We saw I believe it was a 44-year-old woman in swimming that was, competitive, and it's like wow, I mean, it's a whole new age, and BMX especially allows you to continue for quite a while, it seems. And I mean, Tim, we see BMX pros that are still racing, and competitive, not on the Olympic level, but at the USA BMX level, and
Oh,
guys that
sure.
we
I mean,
raced against.
yeah. The age divisions keep getting higher and higher. Like now there's 56 and over, or is it even 61 and over on 20-inch and 66 and over on cruiser. So, you know, you're a long way from there. But you can keep, as you get older, it can still be a hobby and still be something you're really into. Before we forget, I wanted to mention that right now, this year, you're sitting number 2 in the USA BMX point standings leading into the Grand Nationals. And we wanted to talk to you about that.
Yeah, it's a really cool opportunity for me because I've never been in that position before. I've been in the title position as a pro in contention for the title. And the USA BMX title is really prestigious. Everyone knows what it is. It's been around forever. Everyone wants to hold the big cup on top of their head. But I've had 4 USA BMX wins this year, and I think around 10 podiums in total. So it's been a really good year and a really consistent year, and I definitely couldn't be more excited to head into the grands in the best position that I could have put myself in. Yeah.
The Grands are so, as we record this, the Grands are so close. I can smell turkey. I mean, it's close. And as we get closer, do you increase your training or do you make changes in any way in anticipation of the race?
No, the honestly, I tune back on the training a little bit and taper so we can peak on Thanksgiving weekend. And I'm not making any changes at this point. Um, Really, all of the work has been done, and the best thing that I can do to prepare myself is any kind of mental preparation for the race. And that could be anything from visualizing the race and putting myself in like a race scenario to in different situations and replaying like what I want to do in my head and just kind of letting go of all the hype and honing in on just myself.
So it's that's where Arielle comes in. She helps you kind of focus and and get stronger mentally, right? And that you say one of the things she helps you with?
Yeah, yeah. And it's nice because my parents and my coach are going to be at the Grands this year, so I'm going to have my whole circle with me, my whole huge circle, and I love my small circle, and it's going to be great to just have everyone that I really care about there cheer me on.
So you wouldn't
That's
want USA to
exciting.
BMX to say, sorry, no audience this year. It's just the riders on the gate, and that's it. Just
Definitely
we're
not.
bringing back the Olympics, the
That
Tokyo
yeah.
2008 Olympics.
The
No, that wouldn't.
Grands is really unique because the whole night show where the stands are sold out, the lights go out, the laser show goes on, the smoke comes up, so now you can't see in the gate and you're waiting for the smoke to dissipate so you can get on with with your lap. But it's just such a good vibe, yeah.
That's cool. We've talked so much about your career in BMX. We've talked so much about traveling, the Olympics, your training, how you got started, that your dad raced. I guess we're done. Oh, wait, there is one more thing. There is one more thing. And I bet this isn't the last thing, but you just you just dropped a BMX book. Let's hear about that. What's the story here?
I have a children's alphabet book called A to Z BMX Style. And my Aunt Jennifer, who's also my godmother, has A to Z hockey style books. And I originally got the idea from her, and my mom and I wrote up a draft together one Christmas when I was about 10 years old. And it just sat there. We forgot about it. And COVID came up in 2020, and we found this draft on the computer of the ABC book that I wrote, BMX Style. And when we were reading it, I don't know what happened, but the alphabet was out of order and we had to rewrite the whole thing. But what was important was that the idea was there. And my Aunt Jennifer got me hooked up with the same guy that illustrated her books, as well as all of the copyright stuff and all that kind of legal, complicated things, and
The
helped me out with
publishing
that.
stuff.
Yes, which was really helpful because I had no idea how to go about that. And I created a Kickstarter, which was it's just a GoFundMe for creators, and I had a $10,000 goal for printing, shipping, and illustrations. And I had 30 days to meet the goal, and the BMX community was so awesome, and I met the goal. So then I had all the funds to fund my book, and I also had it so that if you donated a certain amount of money, you got a book when it came out, and some people even got their name in the book at the end of it. So then they could actually be a part of the book. And once I got everything from illustrations to the printing done, I got them all at my house in April of 2021. And it has been quite the hit in the BMX community. And I feel like a lot of the Northeast BMXers know about it. But when I moved to Tulsa a few years ago, a lot of people haven't heard about the book. And I'm sure a lot of people still haven't heard about the book, even though it's been out for about 3 years now. Um, I guess maybe even four, that it's yeah, I have every page that rhymes. So it's A is for announcer, who calls all the action. B is for bike, which brings great satisfaction. And my dog, Rocket, I actually have 3 dogs now, but Rocket, she's my 6-year-old beagle. She is hidden in every single page, either her name, image, or likeness. And this is the
That's cool.
kids' favorite part, where they have to find my dog too.
Kids love looking, it's that hidden image thing. It was,
Oh yeah,
you
my
know,
kids loved that. I know. We spent hours buying the books where they had to find things. So and here's another quick thing. I'm not going to interrupt you, but I'm saying after this podcast, more people are going to know about your book.
they
It's
are.
going to be
The
a good
book,
thing.
yeah, I have it on my own website. It's called thenuthouse.bigcartel.com. And I also have it in my Instagram bio. So I have it linked in there to go and buy the book. And then I'll also have books at grants. And what's nice about the book and BMX is that there's always new little kids that come into BMX. There's always new Strider riders out there. So come grants time, Mongoose has a pit. Mongoose, my big sponsor, right at that ramp that goes down from the moto sheets to the BMX track. And I set up a booth right there and I heckle everybody that they need a book. And it definitely brings a lot of book awareness, and people go tell their friends about the book. So I'm excited for that. If anyone's going to be out at Grands, I'm definitely going to have them out there on Saturday and Sunday.
Do you
Yeah,
heckle them
that's
in
great.
alphabetical order, though?
What was
Do you heckle them in alphabetical
that?
order?
Yeah.
I just wanted to check to make sure everybody got this because you said it really fast. It's the nut house at bigcartel.com.
Nuthouse.bigcartel.com.
Okay, dot, not at. So it's the nuthouse.bigcartel.com.
Yeah,
And that's where they can find the book and buy it if they're not at the Grands.
yes.
Okay.
And man, I love BMX. I love learning new things and education. And this book was my COVID project to bring those two interests of mine together and just spread uh, knowledge and some kind of fun new thing to the BMX community.
Yeah, I love it. I love that idea.
Tim, I interrupted you. You had a question. What was it? I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was going to say earlier, when I was doing some research, I think there was a news channel in Pennsylvania that did a story about you and your book. And I thought that was really informational and that's how I found out about the book. Of course, if you type your name, you are a successful elite BMXer now, so you have a lot of cool information on the internet.
Yeah, I don't know who created the Wikipedia page on me, but thanks.
Isn't that funny? You never know who did it, and they've got all this info about you. Um, is there another book in the plans in the future?
Actually, yes. I have a numbers book in the works, a 0 through 20, and I have all the illustrations in the works right now. The book's already written, and I have illustrations. Man, it takes quite a while, but hopefully within the next either year and a half, I have a next book out.
Oh, you may have to
Great.
change one of the numerals, though. You may have to change number 1 to number 1 is the podcast that I was on, and come up with a rhyme for that, and you know, but as long as you didn't put us at 0, Tim. I
Yeah.
mean that
Number
zeros for the
one is
guys
the
that I.
yeah, number one is the trophy that Tim got, but he crossed out your name, but we're not going to talk about that.
That's right. That's right.
See, that is a pure fabrication, but it's a good story anyway.
Yeah. Okay, Tim. It's now lore. It's now what we call lore. Hey, who are your sponsors? You got to hit all them. Come on, sponsor time.
All right, man. I'm not going to forget anybody. That's one of my biggest fears, that I'm just going to forget somebody. But Mongoose, I've been with Mongoose since 2020, and man, Mongoose has been such a good sponsor to me, and I'm so thankful for them, as well as the USA BMX Foundation. We have done some school visits alongside Mongoose to get more kids on bikes, and a few more programs with the foundation to get more kids on bikes, and that's been really of. And my helmet. I have fly gear and fly helmet, and my helmet is painted, and I am sponsored by WD-40, who sponsors my helmet.
Oh, cool.
Which that came about when I was on the Devo team. They sponsored the team, and then when that team fell apart, they reached out to me the year after and asked for a helmet deal. So I said, yeah, no problem.
Do you know all the
And
hundreds of
that is-
uses for WD-40?
Yeah, my dad loves that sponsorship more than anybody.
I bet.
He loves the WD-40. Yeah. So that's been awesome. I've been with them for a while now. And Shimano, who gives me awesome parts, the best shoes on the market, ODI grips, Answer BMX parts, E6 carbon rims, Onyx hubs, don't make a sound. No one knows when I'm coming on the track. I'm so stealth out there. Stuart from HRP that always hooks me up with the coolest number plate, and Blot Out Graphics, who also hooks me up with a nice jersey as well. And man, Oakley giving me the best glasses and goggles. I'm wearing them all the time. I walk out of the house looking swaggy thanks to Oakley. So thank you guys.
Cool.
Yeah, that's truly an impressive list.
Yeah.
With some great companies behind you. And
Now, I want to know, Tim, if after this episode, when the people at SpaghettiOs here and they approach her about a big deal,
I see
with spaghettis.
Yeah,
I see a big deal.
Big contract. I see a huge contract.
They're probably going to
coming
get you a couple cars, and they'll say SpaghettiOs down the side, but you'll have some free cars and some really good stuff there.
Yeah, I'm always wearing a different jersey on the track. I have like 4 to choose from, but to recognize me, all you got to do is just know that I'm that girl that wears the WD-40 helmet. I actually have it right here for everyone to
there we go.
That's
nice.
Sweet. Yeah.
Yeah, and
So
I
cool.
design it every year. Trix paints it out of California, and there's always slightly different design, but the logos are always in the same place. So my nickname is Peanut, and I have peanuts on this one.
Go.
And
I love it.
I don't know if you can see too well, but I have my number 15, which was my old coach's number, underlying in my helmet.
It's like ghosted on there.
Kind of
on
like
the back,
I
have my dogs.
Yeah,
I see that.
My
That's
one
cool.
dog, he's only 6 months old, so he didn't make this helmet design yet, but I have my Beagle Rocket, who's hidden in my book, and I have Turbo, my mini dachshund, who is 2 years old, and we have another mini dachshund now, Boost, who's 6 months. We have a little bit of a theme going, obviously.
Turbo and Boost. I love it.
Yes.
Man.
So you're going to get a fourth dog and
cool.
probably name it Thrust, right? I mean,
Speed, Jet, Diesel, we got options, yeah.
That's awesome. So we got your sponsors covered. We want to reiterate that you go to thenuthouse.bigcartel.com and you can buy this book. Or if you're going to be at the Grands, right that ramp that goes down, Mongoose is right there, and she's going to be there heckling you and saying, hey, you didn't get a book yet? What's the deal? So you get a free trophy, one of my trophies when you buy a book.
I'm going to see you pushing the stroller with your little girl or boy, and I'm going to say, I know that he or she does not know their alphabet yet. There's no way you don't want a book.
You gotta do something, Payton, like give them a little bracelet that says I bought a book or something. That way you only heckle the people that haven't bought yet. So
yeah, sometimes people come back for a repeat. So yeah,
and you always give the announcers free books. That way they talk about them on the PA during the race. So
that's another, because the announcers all have kids and grandkids.
Yeah,
everybody needs a book.
Yeah, I mentioned this a few times, 100 times. So
those are old marketing tricks from when we worked in the industry.
Yeah, like gators. How many times do we hear about gators, Tim? Horrible stuff.
Payton doesn't know what gators are, but
thank goodness you didn't have to live through the time of gators.
That's
Gators were like Yeah, go ahead, Tim.
It was like an extension of your race pants, like it went down, it like extended it down to your shoes. Yeah, I think in motocross with motorcycles, it kept the mud off your boots, but there was no reason to have them in BMX. But
Now
it was
there
a fad.
was a lot of
There was a
kids just
fad.
like you, Tim, who grew very fast and their leathers fit them around the waist, but
Yeah,
were maybe that too short. You could hide that with the gaiters because they
yeah.
were like extenders.
This is what we call the weave, right? We're weaving into some weird topics, but it's fun.
Yes, you got to get that. You got to get that all
Flop
going.
around? Would they get stuck in your chain ring?
Yeah,
Or
you know
were
what?
they like tight?
They were
No,
kind
because
of tight.
yeah, they were kind of tight, but if you really were cool, you had a pro guard, which was a
No,
plastic,
that was
it was a
even
plastic piece of plastic extrusion you put on your chain to keep dirt off your chain. And it
that's
didn't
what they
work.
said. What it
Yeah.
actually did was come off, get caught in your sprocket, and mess you all up.
Yeah.
And we brought it up with Mike Miranda on the show that he was on because he was their sponsored pro.
He was paid to use pro guards.
And he goes, Brad, after the first race, I asked him, I go, can I not run it? And they said, just run the sticker on your plate. And
We'll still pay you. Yeah.
here's your pro who's not even using the product because it was so bad. But it was
Things have come a long way, Payton. Things have come a long way. Your bike is rock solid, I'm sure.
and the thing about it is that some of the gimmicks that were in the early BMX, like spokey dokes or rad caps or, all those kind of things that you'll have to Google those,
Yeah.
is things that would never even be a consideration at the level you're at because it's all about,
Weight.
It's about weight and just being functional. And just like your training is all about functionality, right?
And intention.
Yes,
Yeah.
intention. That's a great way of putting it. So, Tim, did you have anything else?
I mean, I was carefully going through here, and thinking about things. I don't have anything else, but Payton, we want to be sure that if you have anything else you want to talk about, now,
anything
we're
we can talk
we're all ears.
So we covered quite a lot and a lot of good things too.
Yeah.
I don't want to tell the viewers that we recorded this twice, but this might be our second time. But I feel like this podcast was completely different than the one that we already did, and we had the same questions, kind of. So
Good. I'm glad you felt like that. What
Yeah.
she's referring to is we did a podcast about a week and a half ago and had a technical difficulty where at the end of the podcast, it did not upload from the cloud. And we lost everything but a really, really atrocious audio. Tim and I worked on it. Tim tried to sweeten the audio, and we were going to put up photos and things. And at the end of the day, we said, no, Peyton's worth a lot more than that. And I think if we can get her to schedule with us, and we thank you for rescheduling with us. I know it was a little tough. But you're right. I'm glad that you felt that way because I felt the same. We talked about the same things, but we kind of threaded them a little bit different and kept it interesting because if it's not interesting for the three of us, how can it be for the listener, right?
I thought we did a good job. And your answers, Payton, you're always so, you're very good at storytelling. You're very good at telling your story. And we appreciate you so much for agreeing to come back on. And we hope to have you on again in the future too.
yeah, no problem. I was stoked to give you guys your first new school face of the Super
Yes.
Rad BMX podcast.
That's awesome. You know what we should do? And if you want to do it, let us know. But maybe just after the first of the year or even, no, I'm not going to say, I'm going to say in maybe December, you should come back and give us a little report, a firsthand report of your results at the Grands and what happened at the Grands because it could be just 15 minutes of here's what happened at the Grands. I sold 50,000 books and I won handily and but just would you be up for doing that?
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, we'll coordinate with you and get a little 15-minute recap of the Grands direct from you and how the track was and everything, because that's what's always exciting is to hear from the riders how the track is, you know? So I used to build the tracks along with Bill Starlin back in the day, and it was always funny. Bill and I'd get done and we'd go, man, this is going to be the best track ever. And then the riders would come to us and go, you know, those first two jumps, what were you thinking? They peak like this, and you'd think, no, wait a minute, we thought they were great, you know? So it's always good to hear the other side. So yeah, we'll hold you to that. And everybody remember, as we told you a couple times, check out Payton's new book, BMX A to Z, and you can be found at thenuthouse.bigcartel.com, or if you're going to the Grands, you can grab one there, and you can find Rocket hidden in that book on every single page, hidden or a picture or something, a name called it out, something there. So, and at the race, you can see the same thing on the back of her helmet. It's not hidden very well, but it's right there. All right. I think we're going to wrap it up. And we sure appreciate you taking time to be with us. And everybody,
Absolutely.
This is Super Rad BMX. And don't forget, as we told you, maybe some of you just want to listen to this while you work or while you commute or whatever you're doing, you're training. And you can do that on almost every one of the major outlets, such as Apple, such as I'm gonna go down here, iHeart, Spotify, anywhere that is carrying a lot of the big leading podcasts. We're there, and we'll be back next week, and that's a promise, not a threat. Thanks for listening.
This is the Super Rad BMX Podcast. Down the first straight is the cruising Cornhusker over the jump on Z Brad. Now your host Brad Fanshaw and Tim Lilladora.
Get ready to represent the Super Rad BMX Podcast in style with these rad BMX t-shirts. They're perfect for listening to your favorite Super Rad BMX Podcast episodes, hitting the track, or cruising around town, and showing off your passion for BMX culture. Join the Super Rad BMX community and showcase your love for this podcast with these awesome Vintage BMX t-shirts. Order yours today on radmatic.com and ride in style.